Dan Illman, Mike Beer here outside the paddock at beautiful Monmouth Park, getting set for Haskell Saturday, and race number 10 on the card kicks off a pick 5. It's the Grade 3 Monmouth Cup. Let's throw up the field. We're going 9 furlongs. $400,000 is the purse, and it's really nice to see Tapit Trice back in the entries. We haven't seen him since he ran in the Travers, an underrated effort.
Yeah.
This is a long layoff and a demanding distance at a relatively short price.
Yeah, this seemed like a very unprofessional horse as a younger horse, Dan. He could never really put it all together, but there were some pretty good races on his card as a 3-year-old in some pretty tough spots. My first question when I pulled the PPs for this race, Dan, was, where has he been for a year?
That's a major question. I know he was entered and he was scratched, and Todd's great off layoffs, and you'd think he'd find the right spot for him off of the bench. A mile and an eighth, though, isn't easy, and we always say it, don't we? Oh, these green 3-year-olds, once they turn 4, the light bulb will come on. Well, sometimes it happens. More often than not, it doesn't.
Yeah, it feels like it's not a given that he's just going to be automatically better this year, but if he is better this year, look out.
I'm not sure how fast this pace is going to be, so let's look to our friends at Timeform US for advice with their Timeform US pace projector. The number 2 Cuchar showed speed in the Suburban last time out. He was just in a little bit too tough that day. He's shown the ability to rake from off of the pace. I think the 4 Counter Spy stretching out probably makes the top.
I get Cuchar being forward in this race. I didn't see him on the lead. I'm with you. Counter Spy probably looks like the most logical horse to make the lead. I'll be very interested to see what Jose Ortiz has in mind from the rail with Stage Raider. He hasn't been showing speed recently, but he's got speed. He's got the rail. I'd like to see him go.
And he is the horse we're going to start things off with. He is, of course, Justify's half-brother, and he's done some good things in his career. It looked like once Cherie DeVoe got him, he was going to turn his life around. He ran really well to be second behind a favored gate-to-wire winner, Zozos, in the ACAC. That was back in September, and then after that, it was just one tough start after another. Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, the Clark. Then you got the feeling the Tenacious was one race too many before the layoff. They brought him back in the Salvatore Mile, Mike. I'm curious as to your thoughts. It was the typical bid flattened performance that I don't mind seeing first off the layoff. What do you think of 9 furlongs?
Yeah, especially as far as his most recent start goes, not only the bid flattened, but also just sat wide around the track.
It up the rail.
Almost feels like it was just a prep race for something next. And maybe this is something next for this horse. I like that he draws inside 9 furlongs. It's a question. He has certainly run very well over this distance in the past. His Beyer top is a 99. He earned that going this distance around 2 turns at Saratoga. So he can get this far. He's bred to get this far. I feel like he can be more forward from the inside draw. Outside of the 2 favorites, I think he's the most interesting horse in the race.
It's going to be a fair price at post time for a very, very good trainer. Cuchar is the number 2. Now, this guy did win at 9 furlongs 2 starts back. It was a high-level allowance at Belmont at the Big A. They ran him in the Suburban. He showed speed. He tired. Those horses are a little bit too tough for him. It makes me wonder if maybe this class of competition is a little too tough for him.
He's got that question to answer, doesn't he? I mean, he's run very well right along in his races, but it does kind of feel like every time they jump him up and run him in stakes races, he's just not quite good enough. I don't mind this spot for him. His recent form is good, but he's going to have to up his game at least a little bit.
I wonder if this is sort of a make or break race for the 3 Highland Falls. Beautifully bred son of Curlin out of Round Pond. There's been some buzz about him since he made his career debut. He was 4th in the Big Cap, 2nd in the Oaklawn Handicap. Finally got that stakes win last time out in the Grade 3 Blame. For a brief second at odds on, he looked like he was in hot water, but he grinded it out in the manner of a stayer, and at least the runner-up came back to win.
He does feel like a stayer, so he has that going for him. I'll be honest, Dan, I mean, I think he's the horse to beat in here. I think that's pretty apparent on paper. He's got the 104 2 starts back. I think that number could use a little bit of confirmation, but we'll see what happens going forward. I was probably too hard on this horse out of his standing to Derby. I didn't like his effort that day. I was sort of against him going forward in there, but he was so lightly raced on the way in and he ran fine. I don't know, man. He's the horse to beat, but I can't say that I love him at a short price.
The 4 is Counter Spy, the expected speed on our Timeform US pace projector. This guy had won 5 of 6 going into his last race. They cut him back slightly at Parks in an allowance race, and it just didn't work out for him against a pretty good field there. All in all, though, it had to be considered a disappointing performance. I think they're going to be very aggressive with him from the start, but they're a class and distance questions.
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking about Stage Raider before, wondering if 9 furlongs is too far for him. What about this horse? I think he will make the lead in here. I'm not sure he's good enough. Not sure he wants to go this far.
Nice to see this performance from the 5 Cozaris. He was able to stretch out in his second start off of a 5-month layoff and beat third level allowance types going a mile and 70 yards. Now he's got to stretch out a bit more against tougher competition, but that 94 Beyer doesn't put him too far off the top ones.
It really doesn't. I mean, it's clearly the best race he's ever run, and it's not like he had terrible form before that race. There were a couple of disappointing efforts along the way, but it feels like he really got back on track last time. This is a really tough ask for him, but listen, you got Tapit Trice off the layoff. Maybe that Cox horse, Highland Falls, isn't quite as good as he looks on paper. It opens the race up to some other horses.
These connections found a live one with the 6 surface to air. They dipped in for $30,000 on the day he won by the length of the stretch at Highland, and since then he's gritted it out to win 2 in a row, including this first level allowance score going a 1-turn mile. I liked his race 2 starts back going a mile and an eighth. Now, they were against weaker competition. It's a big step up in class. Keep in mind, he's 10-1 when he wins the starter allowance, 20-1 when he wins the first level allowance. What's he going to be against these horses?
Bigger price in this race even, so if you're a believer, I guess you can just ride the train here, Dan, and stick with him as he looks for 4 in a row. He was the longest shot on the board, winning the N1X allowance last time. It'll be a big price again.
Far More Power's always been a nice source for Park Space trainer Lou Linder. Won the Park's Dirt Mile and beat a good horse in Mind Control. That was back in 2022. He got to win 3 starts back in the Page McKenney going 7/8 of a mile, a race where he was far out of it early, came with a good late run to beat a couple of next out winners. We'll see what he can do going a mile and an eighth. He's fairly versatile, but I do wonder if this is too far. He has figs.
Yeah, he's got figs. I don't know. I don't love this distance for him either, and it's obviously another class test for this horse. We'll see how he handles the step up here. I do, if nothing else, Dan, he's got those 2 running lines going 7 furlongs away so far back. He'll be closer this time.
And Tapit Trice, the number 8, is really the key to the race. You can argue he's the most talented horse, but as Mike said in the open, where's he been? We haven't seen him since this race, the Travers, a race where he didn't break very well. And the next thing you know, first time blinkers, he pulled Jose Ortiz 4 wide into the first turn, 3 wide all the way around the track. The fact that he was still in there punching on at the end, I think shows that he has quality. He won the Bluegrass and the Tampa Bay Derby, was 3rd in the Belmont. If Todd has him ready, he's going to fire a good shot. I wonder what his running style, how that plays over this notorious Monmouth track, sometimes speed friendly.
And we'll see what Irad does from the outside post too. Does he try to get out of there running and go forward? Does he take him back and hope for a trip? We'll see how it all plays out. I think he's talented. I'm a fan of his, actually. Even though I feel like you could say he's been disappointing overall, I'm a fan. They ran him here in the Haskell last year, Dan. He only managed 5th, beating almost 10 lengths. Thought he ran an underrated race that day without a good trip.
Let's take a look at our top picks in the Monmouth Cup. On the ride down from the big city earlier this morning, I said, what do you think? What do you think about the horse from the rail, Mike? And you're like, I don't really know if Stage Raider wants to go a mile and 1/8. I'm like, all right, Tapit Trice for me off of the bench, and then lo and behold, Stage Raider.
It's all about who you're running against and then what kind of price you can get on the horse that you like. And the more I looked at the race, Dan, I'm not sold on the big favorite here from the Cox Barn. Tapit Trice, maybe this is the right spot, but does he have to win this race off a year left? He doesn't. I want a forward trip for Stage Raider, and I want his best race.
And you're at least going to get a fair price on the tote. Points well taken. Mike's going with Stage Raider, Justify's brother. I'm curious to see what Tapit Trice can do, because if he improves a little bit, he might be an interesting horse in this handicap division second half of 2024.